Hello everybody and welcome back to another exciting episode of Reading with Grandma. Today we're starting a series on dinosaurs. If you have a particular dinosaur storybook that you would like me to read, let me know in the comments the title of the book, and if I don't have it, I will get it and I will read it to you for your little ones. So we're going to start off today with The Big Little Dinosaur. The Big Little Dinosaur is written by Darlene Guess, and the pictures are by Bob Jones. Danny was a big little dinosaur. He was big because his kind of dinosaur was tremendous, and he was little because he was still quite young. Danny lived in a swampy marshland during the days when the world was new. Giant ferns and mosses grew everywhere. Some of them were as tall as trees, and they grew as thick and green as the jungle down to the water's edge. Even the water had green plants growing in it. And there is little Danny right there. He's very big, but he's still a little baby. The world was very strange in those olden days. Wonderful and strange creatures lived in it. But it was a lonely place for little Danny, for ever since he had hatched out of his egg, he didn't know to which family he belonged. Someday I'll find out, he thought. But in the meantime, Danny ate and ate and ate. He was always nibbling on green ferns or moss. One day, a large bat-winged creature flapped down out of the sky. It folded its leathery wings and looked at Danny. "What's your name?" Danny asked. "Pterodactyl, the wing finger," the big flying creature answered. "Hello, Pterodactyl," said Danny. "Glad for the company. May I go along with you?" "You may, if you can," the pterodactyl said with a sly grin, "but I do something you can't. I fly." And with that, the pterodactyl stretched his big wings and flapped off. "I certainly don't belong with the pterodactyls," sighed Danny, and he ate some more plants. Suddenly, Danny heard a strange rattle and clatter nearby. Now what? He wondered. And then he saw an odd sight. Out of the undergrowth marched a dinosaur in armor. Curving up from its neck, over its high back and down its long tail, were two rows of sharp bony plates that rattled when the animal walked. At the tip of that remarkable tail were 4 strong, sharp spikes. And see how big Danny has grown now. Look at how tall he is. He's almost as tall as the trees. Ouch, thought Danny. I wouldn't like to bump into him. But any company is better than none at all. So Danny called out, "Oh, who are you?" The armored dinosaur turned his tiny head. "I'm Stegosaurus, the armored lizard," he answered proudly, and Stegosaurus rattled his bony plates. "I'm going to eat some plants down near the water." "I eat plants too," said Danny. "May I come along?" Stegosaurus nodded his little head yes and marched on. Danny happily followed him. Stegosaurus and Danny were feasting peacefully on tender green shoots when suddenly the earth beneath their feet shook. There was a sound like the rumbling of thunder. What could it be? Danny was alarmed, but Stegosaurus went right on eating. "It's Brontosaurus, the thunder lizard," he explained with his mouth full of leaves. "He's so heavy, it sounds like thunder when he walks." Danny peeked through the ferns. There he saw not one, but 2 enormous creatures plodding down to the water's edge. Their legs were as big around as tree trunks. Their long necks stretched up toward the sky. Their even longer tails dragged heavily behind them. Thump, thump, thump. With each step they took, the ground shook and rumbled under their great weight. How frightening, thought Danny. But the huge dinosaurs were minding their own business. They kept moving slowly down toward the water, stopping once in a while to snap off a green leaf. Their heads turned this way and that as they chewed, and their look was very gentle. "Why, even though that they're so big," thought the little dinosaur, "they're not fierce at all." In fact, Danny thought they were the most beautiful creatures he had ever seen. They were moving out into the deep water, and the little dinosaur looked after them sadly. "How I would like to do that," said Danny. But Danny was afraid he was too small, and he didn't know if he could go out into the water. So he sighed and went on munching some leaves. All at once, there was a snorting and crashing in the underbrush. It sounded terrible. "Goodness, what's that?" Danny asked. But Stegosaurus was shifting his huge armored body around so that he stood between Danny and the bushes. "Into the water, quick! It's Allosaurus, the giant meat-eater," he declared, "and you're his meat." Danny asked no more questions. He moved into the water as fast as he could. The giant Allosaurus kept leaping out of the underbrush with his huge jaws snapping. But Stegosaurus kept him from the water's edge. Whack, whack! A few mighty slaps with that spiked tail, and Allosaurus went limping back into the jungle to tend to his wounds. "Thank you, Stegosaurus," Danny called to his friend from the water. But Stegosaurus was rattling his armor proudly and didn't hear. "Oh, I'm alone again," thought Danny sadly, and he bent his head to nibble on one of the water plants. Just then, the two big dinosaurs came up beside him. "Hello, little Brontosaurus," they said gently. "So that's what I am," Danny exclaimed. "I'm a Brontosaurus." And he moved even closer to the two huge dinosaurs. The three dinosaurs stood there like three islands in the quiet water. Two large islands and one small one, all eating plants. The strange new world seemed safe and happy now. Danny had found his family. And that's the end of The Big Little Dinosaur. We're going to continue with another story about dinosaurs. We're going to read now The Dinosaur Who Lived in My Backyard. It is written by B.J. Hennessy and pictures are by Susan Davis. There used to be a dinosaur who lived in my backyard. Sometimes I wish he still lived here. The dinosaur who lived here hatched from an egg that was as big as a basketball. There's the egg and the dinosaur, and there is his basketball. By the time he was 5, he was as big as our car. Just one of his dinosaur feet was so big it wouldn't even have fit into my sandbox. Look at the size of those feet, and he's just a baby. My mother says that if you eat all your vegetables, you grow very strong. That must be true, because that's all this dinosaur ate. I bet he ate 100 pounds of vegetables every day. That's a whole lot of lima beans. This dinosaur was so heavy that he would have made my whole neighborhood shake like pudding if he jumped. He weighed as much as 22 pickup trucks. There's everybody bouncing all over the place, falling up when he jumps. The dinosaur who lived in my backyard was bigger than my school bus, even bigger than my house. He had many dinosaur friends. He's got a Triceratops, and an Allosaurus, and a little Brontosaurus, and a little Velociraptor, it looks like. Sometimes they played hide and seek. Can you imagine great big dinosaurs playing hide and go seek, hiding behind big trees? The Brontosaurus would have a hard time hiding. Sometimes they had terrible fights. There's a big T-Rex coming after those poor little guys. The dinosaur who used to live here was allowed to sleep outside every night. It's a good thing he didn't need a tent. He was so big he would have needed a circus tent to keep him covered. Back when my dinosaur lived here, my town was a big swamp. This dinosaur needed a lot of water. If he still lived here, we'd have to keep the sprinkler on all the time. That's all I know. Oops, missed a page, sorry. Let's see. My dinosaur had a very long neck, so he could eat the leaves at the tops of the trees. If he still lived here, I bet he could rescue my kite. That's all I know about the dinosaur who used to live in my backyard. He hasn't been around for a very long time. Sometimes I wish he still lived here. It would be pretty hard to keep a dinosaur happy, but my sister and I are saving all our lima beans just in case. The end. And that's our stories for today, The Big Little Dinosaur and the Dinosaur Who Lived in My Backyard. I hope you all enjoyed. Please leave a like, a comment, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to notify you when I'm going to read another one, and have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.